Life has a way of pressing us down with worries, doesn't it? Bills pile up, relationships falter, health weakens, and the future seems like a mountain too high to climb. Many are carrying burdens tonight that no one else can see. But let me tell you something. You don't have to live under the weight of stress because God has already gone before you. The way out has been prepared long before the problem ever showed up. When we look at life, we often see only fragments of the picture. We see the problems that surround us, the challenges that weigh us down, and the uncertainty that clouds our minds. But what we fail to realize is that there is one who sees the entire picture from start to finish. God is not bound by time as we are. He doesn't wait to see how things will unfold. He already knows the conclusion. Before you were born, before you faced the current struggle you're walking through, before you ever shed a tear over your situation, God had already written the ending. He knew the trial would come, but He also prepared the solution. He saw the storm on the horizon, but He also prepared the shelter long before the first cloud appeared. This is why you don't have to panic when life feels uncertain. What looks like confusion to you is clarity to Him. While we wring our hands in fear over tomorrow, God is already standing at the finish line. He sees the outcome, and it is not a story of defeat, but of victory. He is Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. That means He not only started the journey with you, but He also guarantees the conclusion. He never begins something He does not intend to complete. What He has spoken over your life is not an unfinished sentence. It is a promise sealed with His eternal faithfulness. Think of it like an author writing a novel. The characters may not know what will happen in the next chapter, but the author has already outlined the ending. You and I live the story page by page, but God has already written the final chapter. And if you belong to Him, that chapter is filled with hope, redemption, and ultimate triumph. So when the pages you're living through seem dark, don't give up. The story isn't over, and the author of your life has already secured a victorious ending. This truth brings peace to our troubled hearts. You don't need to figure out every detail, because He has already gone before you. He knows the traps of the enemy and has already prepared a way of escape. He knows the weight you carry and has already provided the strength you'll need tomorrow. He knows the prayers you haven't yet prayed, and He has already aligned the answers. There is nothing hidden from Him. And because He knows the end from the beginning, you can walk in confidence, not fear. Stress loses its grip when you realize your life is in the hands of the one who cannot fail. So tonight, instead of focusing on the uncertainty of what lies ahead, focus on the certainty of who holds your future. The road may twist and turn, but the destination is already settled. God has written your story with His own hand, and He has promised that His plans for you are good, to give you a hope and a future. Don't stress. Your tomorrow is not in question. The one who knows the end from the beginning has already prepared the way. Life has a way of magnifying our problems until they seem bigger than anything else. The bills look too high. The diagnosis feels too heavy, the betrayal cuts too deep, and the future appears too uncertain. Problems have a way of dominating our thoughts, filling our minds with fear and our hearts with doubt. But when we measure our problems against the promises of God, we find that what looked impossible suddenly shrinks in comparison to His word. Problems may shout loudly, but God's promises speak with greater authority. They are unshakable, eternal, and backed by the faithfulness of the one who cannot lie. You see, the storms of life will always come. No one escapes trials, hardships, and difficulties, but the child of God has something greater to hold on to than fear. The promises of God are not empty words. They are divine guarantees. When He says, "I will never leave you nor forsake you," it means that no matter how lonely or abandoned you feel, you are never truly alone. When He says, "I will supply all your needs according to my riches in glory," It means lack cannot define your destiny. His promises always outweigh the weight of your problems, because His word cannot return void. Think about the Israelites standing before the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army pressing behind them. The problem was real. It looked like death was inevitable. But God had already given them a promise that He would deliver them from Egypt and bring them into a land flowing with milk and honey. That promise was stronger than the sea in front of them or the army behind them. And at the right moment, the waters parted, because God's promises always make a way where there seems to be no way. Your problems may tell you that you are defeated, but God's promises say you are more than a conqueror. Your situation may tell you that you are trapped, but His word says He will open doors that no man can shut. Your circumstances may whisper that there is no hope, but His promises declare that His mercies are new every morning. Which voice will you believe? The temporary pain of your problems, or the eternal truth of His promises? Stress comes when we focus on the problem. Peace comes when we cling to the promise. The enemy wants you to magnify what is wrong, but God invites you to magnify His word. When you choose to stand on His promises, you find strength that goes beyond human understanding. You begin to walk in faith rather than fear, confidence rather than confusion. Problems may loom large, but they are no match for the unchanging word of God. So lift your eyes from what's pressing against you and fix them on what God has spoken over you. Problems come and go, but His promises remain forever. The same God who parted the sea, who shut the mouths of lions, who raised the dead to life, is the God who walks with you today. Don't measure God's promises by the size of your problem. Measure your problems by the greatness of His promises, and you will discover that every problem you face is already answered in His word. Pressure is something every human being faces. It shows up in different forms: financial burdens, broken relationships, health struggles, family responsibilities, or the demands of work. The weight of pressure can feel suffocating, draining us of strength and stealing our joy. Many lie awake at night, restless and anxious, because the pressures of life are too heavy to carry alone. Yet in the middle of that crushing weight, God offers something this world cannot give: peace that passes all understanding. His peace does not depend on circumstances. It is not fragile, nor does it waver when life becomes difficult. It is steady, unshakable, and freely given to those who place their trust in Him. Think of a storm raging on the sea, waves crashing violently, winds howling with force. On the surface, everything seems chaotic, yet deep beneath those waves, the waters remain calm and undisturbed. That is the peace God provides. On the surface of our lives, the storms may rage, but in the depths of our hearts, He gives a calm that cannot be explained by human reasoning. It is peace that holds you together when everything else is falling apart. When Jesus walked this earth, He promised His followers, "My peace I give to you, not as the world gives do I give to you." The peace of the world is fragile. It lasts only as long as things are going well. The world says you can have peace if you have enough money, good health, or a secure future. But the moment any of those are shaken, that peace disappears. God's peace, however, is different. It is not based on external circumstances, but on His eternal presence. When you know He is with you, even the fiercest pressure cannot destroy your inner calm. This peace shows up in unexpected moments. It comes in the hospital room where fear tries to grip you, yet you sense God's hand holding yours. It comes when you don't know how you'll pay to pay it. He next bill, but a quiet assurance reminds you that God will provide. It comes in seasons of grief when your heart is breaking, yet you still feel a strange strength lifting you above the sorrow. That is not human, it is divine. It is the supernatural peace of God. The enemy loves to use pressure to overwhelm you, but God uses those very pressures to draw you closer to Him. And the closer you are to Him, the more His peace floods your soul. You were never meant to carry the weight of life alone. That's why Scripture tells us to cast all your anxieties on Him, because He cares for you. Every time you release your burdens into His hands, you make room for His peace to take over your heart. So when the pressures of life surround you, don't let stress consume you. Lift your eyes to the one who promises rest for the weary and peace for the troubled soul. He has not left you and he never will. His peace is stronger than your pressure. Trust him, lean on him, and you will discover that even in the most overwhelming moments, his presence becomes your calm, your anchor, and your unshakable peace. Every one of us has faced obstacles that seemed immovable. They appear as dead ends in life: lost jobs, closed doors, broken relationships, shattered dreams. At times, the obstacle is so overwhelming that it feels like God has forgotten us. But the truth is, the very thing that seems like a setback in your life can become the very stage upon which God displays his glory. What looks like a wall is often the doorway to something greater. God specializes in taking what was meant to block you and transforming it into the very thing that propels you forward. Consider the Red Sea once more. To the Israelites, it looked like their journey had come to an end. Behind them, Pharaoh's army was charging. Before them, an ocean stood in their path. To human eyes, this was an impossible situation. Yet what was an obstacle to them was an opportunity for God to demonstrate his power. When the waters parted, the very sea that looked like a trap became a pathway to freedom. And the same waters that threatened their lives swallowed the enemy that pursued them. That's what God does. He turns obstacles into testimonies. Sometimes God places obstacles in our path not to harm us, but to redirect us. What you thought was a closed door may actually be his way of guiding you to something better. That rejection you faced, that plan that didn't work out, that sudden change you didn't expect, it may have been God's hand moving you away from lesser things to prepare you for greater things. Obstacles often serve as divine detours, leading us into the center of his will. Look at the life of Joseph. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused and thrown into prison, his life was filled with obstacles at every turn. Yet those very obstacles became stepping stones toward his destiny. What his brothers meant for evil, God turned for good. Without the pit, without the prison, Joseph would never have reached the palace. And when the time was right, he realized that every obstacle had been shaping him for the opportunity to save a nation. The same is true for you. That trial you are facing right now may be the soil where God is planting the seeds of your next breakthrough. The obstacle that looks like the end may actually be the beginning of a new chapter in your life. If you can see beyond the problem, you will find that God is weaving purpose into every detail. His power is not diminished by your obstacles. Rather, his glory shines through them. So instead of letting obstacles defeat you, view them through the lens of faith. Ask, Lord, what are you teaching me through this? What opportunity are you creating out of this trial? The enemy wants obstacles to destroy you, but God wants to use them to develop you. He is able to turn pain into purpose, trials into triumph, and roadblocks into stepping stones. Trust him, because no obstacle is greater than his plan. What you see as a barrier may very well be the bridge that carries you into your destiny. Weakness is something we often try to hide. We pretend to be strong. We put on a brave face and we tell ourselves and others that we are fine, even when deep down we are exhausted and broken. The truth is, every human being has limits. We reach places in life where our own strength fails us. We run out of answers. We run out of energy. We run out of hope. But here is the good news. When your strength ends, God's strength begins. He never asked you to fight life's battles in your own power. He promised that his grace would be sufficient and his power would be made perfect in your weakness. Our culture teaches us to despise weakness, but God views it differently. Weakness becomes the very place where his strength can be displayed most clearly. When you admit you cannot do it on your own, you create space for God to step in and show what only he can do. Think of the Apostle Paul, who pleaded for his thorn in the flesh to be removed. God's answer was not the removal of the thorn, but the revelation that his grace was enough. Paul discovered that the very thing he thought disqualified him became the channel through which God's strength flowed. He could then declare, "When I am weak, then I am strong." Your weakness does not repel God, it attracts him. He is not searching for the most capable, the strongest, or the most qualified. He is searching for hearts that are surrendered. When you feel inadequate, when you feel too broken, when you feel like you can't go on, that's when you are in the perfect position for God to reveal His power. He delights in using weak vessels so that His glory cannot be mistaken for human effort. Consider Gideon. He saw himself as the least in his family, unqualified to lead. Yet God called him to deliver Israel. With only 300 men, God gave Gideon victory over an army that outnumbered him thousands to one. Why? Because God wanted to show that the battle was not won by human strength, but by divine power. What Gideon lacked in human ability, God supplied with His might. Your life can become the same testimony. What you cannot accomplish on your own, God can accomplish through you when you lean on Him. Stress often comes from trying to carry burdens in our own strength. But God never intended for you to live that way. He invites you to exchange your weakness for His strength, your worry for His peace, your inability for His sufficiency. The very areas where you feel like you are failing can become the very areas where His power shines the brightest. When you stop striving in your own strength and start depending on His, you will find a strength that does not run out, a grace that does not fail, and a power that is greater than anything you face. So don't despise your weakness. Don't let it define you or discourage you. Instead, let it drive you into the arms of the one whose strength never fails. In Him, your weakness becomes a platform for His glory. And every time you feel like you can't take another step, remember this truth. His strength is sufficient for you, always. Victory is not something you have to strive to create. It is something God has already secured for you. Long before you face the battle you are in today, God wrote the outcome. He did not design your story to end in defeat, despair, or destruction. Through the cross and the resurrection, the greatest battle of all time has already been won, and every struggle you face today must bow to that finished work. You are not fighting for victory, you are fighting from victory. The outcome is already settled in heaven. Think about what this means. The enemy may roar, but his roar has no lasting power. He may throw obstacles in your path, but he cannot undo what God has decreed. When Christ rose from the grave, He declared triumph over sin, over death, and over every dark force that would ever rise against you. That victory is not distant. It is personal. It belongs to you because you belong to Him. Every time the enemy whispers defeat, you can stand on the truth that victory has already been written into the pages of your life. In the Old Testament, when God promised Israel the land of Canaan, He said, I have given it to you even before they stepped foot into it. The battle had not yet been fought, the giants had not yet been faced, but the promise was already secured. That is how God works. He declares victory before the fight even begins. The same is true for you. What looks uncertain to you is already settled in His plan. The trials you are walking through today are not the end of your story. They are the pathway to the victory that is already yours. This truth changes how we face life's battles. Instead of living in fear, we live in faith. Instead of giving in to stress, we hold on to hope. When you know the ending has already been written, you can walk through the middle chapters with confidence. The setbacks, the delays, and the disappointments may try to convince you that you've lost. But remember, victory is not determined by what you see in the moment. It is determined by what God has already declared. Victory does not always mean the absence of battles, but it does mean the assurance of the outcome. Sometimes God allows you to face giants so you can see His power bring them down. Sometimes He lets you walk into the fire so that His presence can be revealed in the flames. But no matter what, the ending is not in question. Your victory is guaranteed not by your strength, but by His. So lift your head high even in the middle of the fight. Refuse to let stress or fear dictate your steps. The victory has already been written, signed, and sealed by the blood of Christ. Walk in it. As we look back at everything we've uncovered, one truth shines brighter than all the rest. Stress has no authority over the child of God. We do not live as people tossed around by fear, uncertainty, or pressure because the Lord has already gone before us. He knows the end from the beginning, so our future is never in question. His promises stand unshaken, towering above every problem that tries to crush us. His peace calms our hearts when the weight of life presses down. The very obstacles that appear to block us are transformed into the stepping stones that carry us into His purpose. In our weakness, His strength proves sufficient, turning frailty into testimony. And the ultimate assurance is this: victory is not something we are waiting to achieve. It is something already written into the story of our lives. This means you do not have to live in constant anxiety about tomorrow. You don't need to pace the floor wondering how things will work out. The God who formed you, who loves you, and who walks with you has already secured your path. He is faithful from the first page to the last. The battle may be fierce, but the outcome has been settled. The pressure may be great, but His peace is greater. The struggle may be real, but so is His strength. So let this be the call to your heart. Lay down the weight of worry. Release the grip of stress. Trust in the God who has gone before you, who stands beside you, and who will carry you through. The way out is not something you need to create. It has already been prepared. The victory is not something you need to earn. It has already been won. Walk in faith, rest in His promises, and remember this: when God writes your story, it always ends in hope, always ends in triumph, always ends in glory. Don't stress. Your way out has already been prepared by the one who never fails.